Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you with part 2 of my conversation with Suki Fuller. If you missed it last week, go back because you're going to want to listen to this full episode. It's a great conversation about an interesting life lived across the globe, from the UK to the Middle East to the United States to the Far East, and now centered in Europe. So I'll give you a little bit more background as a refresher. She is an intelligence advisor, author, acclaimed international keynote speaker, and fellow of the Council of Competitive Intelligence Fellows. She is the founder of Mirror, co-founder and senior vice president of DC Analytics, and storyteller for Group of Humans. She's a contributing author to A Practical Guide to Competitive Intelligence, which is available on Amazon. And she is a fierce supporter of intelligence, ethical tech, safety tech, security, privacy, and surveillance. Her eclectic 20-year career within strategic intelligence and technology has taken her from the United States Department of Defense to teaching business in China. She currently resides in London, where she is an intrinsic part of the tech community as a board advisor for Tech London Advocates / Global Tech Advocates, which includes key positions as co-lead for TLA Women in Tech and Vice Chair for GTA Black Women in Tech. She was recently named the most influential woman in UK tech by Computer Weekly for 2023. Mind you, she received this award for 4 years prior. So this is the 5th year running that she's received this award. So let's get right back into our conversation with Suki Fuller. Going back to my comment about mentorship, it sounds like because that is your mindset, that is probably what people are picking up on in your ability, because there's a vision that I think you're not acknowledging is part of who you are, that then is kind of not necessarily projected, but in the way that you're dealing with folks is setting them on an illumination path, if that makes any sense. So when you think about you as a mentor, and the things that you have kind of absorbed from those who have mentored you, what are some of the key kind of activities or takeaways that you would advise for mentors and even mentees, and how to interact with a mentor?
A really weird thing happened to me recently.
Uh-huh.
So I was at an event, and I just, you're just talking to people, and connected with a few people. And there was this older white gentleman there, and I'll give him a shout out, Robert Baker. And he is on the Women on Boards board. He has been in the equality sort of space for a long time. I mean, he's been on this board for like 17 years or something.
Wow. Okay.
His whole entire existence, when he left corporate and everything, has always been about equality. But he was so very much behind the scenes to a lot of people out there. And so we connected on LinkedIn, and I was like, this guy, so we had a conversation. We just had a Zoom chat. And I said, dude, you need to be a lot more public. You need to share more of what you're doing, because women need allies. And I said, and you are very much in that space where you're in that space. You need to be seen more. And he's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm doing things. I was like, you need to post more about it. Never take my own advice about this stuff, of course. I said, you need to post more about this. You need to, share more of the things you're doing. No big deal. Then in probably the last month, and this was just recently, the last 2 months, he is everywhere. He is everywhere. And I'm going, if you look at his profile, LinkedIn, before he was posting, but not as much. And now he's like, and I'm like, yes, I'm trying to get him to persuade him to write a book. I'm like, write a book, because his life is so fascinating. The fact that he is such a big ally for women in general, not, just for women. And nobody really knows about him except for specific groups. I'm like, no, dude, dude, you need to be out there setting the example so that other people can see it. I said, because your peers, the other white dudes, they're behind. But it's just really weird because I didn't think that I was mentoring him. I was just having a conversation. And he reached out to me and he says, "No, you like mentored me. You coached me." And I'm like, "No, I didn't. I just gave you a little bit of advice."
So it's those gifts that we don't know that we have sometimes.
So it's just a conversation. I always tell people it's just a conversation. I don't think, yeah, you get best mentor, when you're in an accelerator program and you're advising. I'm going, what do you mean best mentor? I just talked to people, told them some really hard truths, gave them some hugs, sent them on their way, said, maybe you ought to pivot your company because that's rubbish.
Yeah.
Um, I had to do that a few times. It's like, what is the worth of your company? What exactly are you hoping to achieve? What good is it for the world? And I'm a firm believer in that. Don't just do something because it's going to make a shed load of money, because ultimately you're going to feel you need to do something else. And it's not going to fulfill you. Very few people that get fulfilled from that. You can see it with people that are extremely wealthy. They're still not fulfilled.
You mentioned something about your accent before. And so I think that's a good kind of intro to Glocal speak, because living in so many places and I think part of this is the code switch, right? So there's a little bit of the code switch for the different geographies and locations that you might be in. We typically think of code switching as changing from vernacular to quote unquote formal English or what have you. But with that all said and understood, we want to hear what you hear. So I asked you to share a word, a phrase, or a saying that is a meaningful part of your local experience and why or how you come to value it as Glocal speak. And so this could be any local that you've decided that you are particularly attached to, or a saying that you like to use.
There are two things about the UK. One that bothers me, and that is the consistent "I'm sorry." It's the apologizing for everything. And I very rarely say sorry. I always say I apologize. And I do not remember who taught me that. I just know it was somebody in my intelligence career that said, don't ever say you're sorry, just say you apologize.
Interesting.
Don't remember why. I just know that now. And if I say I'm sorry, it is a very personal thing. It's not to anybody on the street that I say I'm sorry. It's, people say that they bump into somebody and they say sorry. I'm going, why are you telling me sorry? It's, why am I saying sorry to you when you bumped into me? No, no. It just, it's like,
It's so true. It's become just like a throwaway word, so there's no meaning to it. So the accountability.
yeah, it's like saying, how you doing? That's one of the things in the US. How you doing? That irks me, because and when people say it here, like, oh, how you doing? Do you really want to know? When people ask that, I always say, do you want to know the truth, or do you want to know the glowing truth? And it stops people, because I'm like, don't ask the question if you don't really want to know. Because when I ask the question, I want to know. That's why, as you saw when we started speaking, I'm like, no, there's the truth, and then there's the truth. So, and that just is just consistent with me. The one thing that I love about there's this phrase, and it's so annoying. It's so wrong, but it's a British thing, and it is "in it."
Yes, it is. Oh my gosh.
I do not know why, and I think it's just one of those things when people say, "Oh, in it," and I just don't know why. It's such a British sort of a British. It's everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're up north. It doesn't matter. Everybody uses it, and I don't know why I love it so much. I just love that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever spent time in Ghana, but it's like our chale. So like, oh, chale, or in it, yeah, it's one of those catch everything words, right? Just
Yeah,
yeah.
and I just just one of those things. And I've spoken to and been with some of the poshest, quote
Yeah.
unquote, people in the land, and they use it.
Sure, exactly.
And it's like, wait a minute, you're like some Eton educated Oxbridge person, and they will say "Blah, blah, blah, blah," in it. And it's like, what? Where is this coming from?
That's
But I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And the thing that I don't like about what we say in the US, one that has permeated the whole world, and it's awful, is you guys. And I make a huge effort, especially when I'm at a female focused, women only event, and people get on the stage and go, well, hey, you guys. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't care if it's a general term. It's a general term that I don't think is very valuable.
Sure. I mean, it's gendered. It's a gendered term.
Exactly. It's not. It's horrible. It's everywhere in the world now, and it's now in the UK. And I make a point of just telling everybody, don't use it when you start out an event. Don't say, "Hey, you guys." And people do. They get on the stage and they do that, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Hey, everybody. Hey, y'all. Y'all is my favorite. I always say, "Hey, y'all," and people. It's like, I'm talking to everybody.
Sure, right. It's more inclusive. So I like where the conversation is going with that comment, because you've done and you're very much focused on women's empowerment, and particularly in the tech space. And so can you tell us a little bit more about what your now is in terms of working with women and empowering them in tech and in entrepreneurship?
So I'm going to take my flowers right now.
Yes.
I'm going to say that this year we have an award ceremony. It's Computer Weekly, and that's one of the biggest magazines, publications for people within the industry. And I won Computer Weekly's most influential woman in UK technology for 2023.
Nice.
And I won that in October. That was last month.
Congratulations. Yes. Nice.
And thank you very much. I always get really uncomfortable with awards, and it is what it is. But for me, being out front as an intelligence person is not what we do. We are supporters of people that are in the front. We are the key advisors to national security officers. We are the advisors to CEOs, to boards, to the chief stakeholders. We are sort of the conciliere, we are that side guy to, the Michael Corleones. We are not the people out there making the decisions. We advise you on where you should go. So for the longest time in the women in tech space, I've always been the advisor to people that are in the women in tech space, to people that are on boards where they're senior women in leadership positions. I've been quote unquote mentors or advisors to them. So this was kind of like one of those things like, oh, so I have to be out front now.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And so for me, this has just basically provided a platform for me to help some of the women that are not out front as much, to highlight that there are women that work in technology that are not technologists, that there are women like me that work in intelligence, but we're working adjacent to technology. There are women that work in architecture. There are women that work in just different areas that are not seen as being technology.
Sure.
It's everywhere. It imparts, it's a piece of everything that we do, that there are women that are not, UX, UI, front end, back end developers, that there are people that make the equipment, hardware. They work in tech, you cannot, it's not going to function. Why are you going to code something if you have nothing to code it on? The people that make the hardware, that make your computers, that make your mobile phones, the people that are doing that are working in tech. So for me, this just provides that opportunity to say, hey, we have women that are working in mechanical engineering. That's tech. you know, we have women that are working in electrical engineering. That's tech. It's not just about people that are coding. And that's sort of the image that's been put out there about technology, that it is all, working at Google, working at Apple, and coding and, making websites. I'm like, no, that's the far end. That's the end result. And I really want to be more, and I've always been more about people in the supply chain, because the supply chain is actually where the real money is worth, where the real money is made. And everybody is so focused and hyper focused on the commercial end at the other side, which is the customer, the end of the supply chain, which is about consumption. And I'm always about the building. I would like to be inspirational and more influential to little girls that are wanting to come in and be chemical engineers, just because I'm not. Because guess what? Mining is where the real talent is. Because if we don't have people that know how that works, you can't get the end product.
Exactly.
And that's where you want people. That's where I want people to invest their money. You can invest in Apple. Yeah, that's fine. Invest it in a mine. We need to go back to where we own that original area. Like, you look at the world and you see, like, oh, wait a minute. We don't own the cobalt mines. Wait, they're on our land. Why do we not own that? And you need that in order to make your nice, pretty battery, so your car or whatever can run your that guy's satellites.
Yeah, right.
It's just unreal to me that people don't think about tech as that. And that for me is where my whole sort of mission is making sure that we get more women, more Black women in those areas. And it may not seem like it is fiscally as advantageous to a lot of young people, because they see the glitz and glamour of the other side. But I'm like, the other side is fickle.
Right.
It just
Exactly. Yeah.
it depends on what's popular of the day. What, 20 years ago, it was all about, oh yeah, having an iPod. Hello, you listen to music on your phone. This is going to go away soon also. So the things that we really need are the things that are building those hardwares, building those mainframes. Like, mainframes are not going to go anywhere for a long time. You need that. That's where we need to store. So if you know how to do that, if you know how to make that work, keep it working. If you know how to fix the robots, because yeah, the robots are going to fix it. But who is fixing the robot? Another robot? But somebody at the end of that is going to need how to know how to do that. And that's where I want to make sure that we get talent seeded, because if you have the talent at the very beginning of a supply chain, that person is always going to have a level of control. And right now, we don't have any of that control, because that's not where our talent is. We're always at the other side of being consumers.
You said that so well, so well. And I would almost venture to say that the vocabulary around technology actually needs to shift to what your expertise is, which is intelligence. So if we're using that more ubiquitously, I think that would change mindsets to understand that, first of all, intelligence is kind of an elevated, not, this is a PR marketer in my mindset, saying that if we just call it all intelligence, then every step makes people feel like they're involved in this bigger picture more holistically, right? Just something to think about.
When I talk about intelligence to startups, to anybody, I always tell them this should be embedded in the very core of your business. There are, like right now, we have people just reverse engineering, safety. An AI safety summit? No, we had a safety summit a few years ago, which was just about online safety. That should be the core of everybody's business. The AI safety is just an addendum because now it's AI. It should actually have been an online safety summit and made that bigger. Instead, we have an online safety bill, which is directed towards children. No, it should have been everybody, which is how it started out. But, things get watered down. But intelligence, it should be at the core of your function. I tell people this when startups come to me and they say, oh, this is our idea. And I say, build in the intelligence function right now. Build in your business ethics right now. If you're thinking about something, you should be thinking about it ethically. You need to think about holistically, if somebody were to use this for something other than what you have designed it for, what would that look like? Is it going to be bad? Because people, when they build things, they are always very much in their blind spots of it's going to be so good for the world. But you also need to consider that it may possibly be bad, because for every yin, there is a yang. And a lot of people don't think of. So when I say the intelligence of something, I say, look, let's start out. Think about this holistically. The people that you hire, make sure you have good people. And yeah, you're going to have a bad apple, but you can mitigate the risk as long as you are planning and aware. Awareness is key. And a lot of people don't even do that. They say, oh, I'm going to hire this person. When you're looking at where you get your money from, who are you getting your money from? This is my pet project right now, is the due diligence when it comes down to starting a company, or because people just take their money, which is why you have implosions going around, SoftBank overvaluations of companies, because people just go, I'm just going to take the money from here. And I know that I could have made a significant amount of money if I was willing to go to some of the places where people are offering me a great deal of money to share my idea of what ethical looks like, so that they can undermine that, so that they can, do something a little shady. And I tell people, I know at the end of my days, on my deathbed, doesn't matter how much money I have, don't have, I want to look back on my life and go, I came here and I did good. I didn't leave and know that I damaged things in such a way that people will be cursing my name from, until the end of their days. I want to know that I affected the world in a positive way. And a lot of people don't consider that. They just want, to just have the best life possible. And for them, the best life is not about doing good. It's just about doing good for them.
It's a good way to move into my mindset hack question. I like to ask, what is your favorite or an innovative mindset hack? And so that's something that you practice, something that you know of, or something that you can imagine for the world as a mindset hack.
I don't have a mindset hack. I was thinking about this. I don't have one. You know what it is? For me, it's being close to grass.
Yes.
It's not even so much grass, it's just more nature. I think I am not as pleasant a person when I'm around concrete jungles too much. I can exist in there, but there's sort of a sharpness that exists when you're in a city. For me, there is. It's like I would be a lot. It's like when you're walking through a train station. I like to just walk slow. I don't like to be rushed. I leave to get to places early, so I make sure I have enough time, because I like to walk and I like to look around. I like to be aware of my surroundings. And when you're in sort of a city, you're not afforded that luxury. It's like you almost have to acquire a different persona of being hurried. And if you're not hurrying, then you must be a tourist. You're either a tourist or something's wrong with you. And for me, living someplace where I'm not hurried is my mindset hack. I still do like to trail run, but nah, the knees,
No, I know.
the knees, the knees, and the extra weight that I still like, you know, COVID, they have the
Oh,
freshman
right.
15, and then I had like the COVID 50. Because look, I was eating good. I was like, I'm making this. I would see something and be like, well, I got to make that.
Right.
Oh, wait, well, I have to eat it too. So, yeah, and subsequent things. So, but I do like to be outside in nature. I don't care, a beach, the woods. If I can see it from my window and it's right there, I'm good. Even if I can't go down and touch it, just being right there. If I'm looking out my window and there's a big, huge concrete window, big concrete building, different mindset. So for me, it is being able to have space. And space, I know, is very much a luxury afforded to me. It's not for everybody. Not everybody can live outside of the city. So for me, mindset hack, space, books, music, and also silence.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, those are great ones.
Silence. And I love being able to sleep at night and there's no lights. Like I don't have to draw my curtains, pull the blinds down. It's pitch black and it's just silent.
Yeah, that's a great feeling. So it's interesting that you mentioned that because so I was just on a plane and in most of my entertainment, like movies, comes from watching on planes because I don't have time otherwise. So this was a film called The Pod Generation. And so exactly what you're saying was part of the storyline of this comfort and discomfort with nature. And this was a society that had figured out that, oh, we don't need nature anymore. We're just gonna, everything, you have a nature pod, you have everything that's compartmentalized for you. So you don't have to do all those things. So I mean, obviously the film ultimately debunked that theory, but it just kind of speaks exactly to what you're saying about hacking your mindset, because we'll either hack it in a way that makes us less human, or we'll remember that we are those humans that need that interaction.
It's needed.
It is.
It's needed. Even what do I do when I'm outside? Sometimes I listen to music when I'm walking or listen to a podcast. Very rarely do I listen to music or podcast when I run. Like for me, and I think that's sort of also a little bit the army thing coming back, is that I like to run and like to hear things. And in my head, usually I'll maybe sometimes sing cadence in my head just to make sure that I'm keeping my stride, my gait correct. It's just, and I also think that's probably because that's where my true sort of running and training started, was in the reserves, was in the army. So running to like singing cadence in my head works. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, yeah, I'm the same. I don't My soundtrack for running is nature. It's the streets. It's and it's that awareness because I'm moving. But when I walk, I am listening typically to a book or a podcast or something like that. So we're very similar in that way, which leads us to ask you, you've kind of said, what you do when you're not being this phenomenal change maker and change leader. But tell us more about what you're reading, watching, or listening to, and what are some of your favorites? I knew you.
So you know what I recently started listening to? Because I do listen. Audible gets way too much. They just got me, didn't they?
Uh-huh.
They were just like, oh, hello, let's just get her.
Right.
We know we'll have her for life.
Mm-hmm.
I started listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger's book,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and very surprisingly, actually, it's read by him, and his voice is not.
Interesting.
It's like when you listen to it, you're just like thinking, "I'll be back." But you know what? It's sort of practical advice because he had a very clear vision of the things he wanted to do at a very young age. So it's a lot of practical advice, and it's really good.
Okay. I've actually heard that. Yeah.
I was really like I was genuinely shocked. Genuinely shocked because I don't usually go with the recommendations of Audible.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, I don't think so.
Right. The algorithm. Yeah.
And
Whatever.
I was like, you know what? I'll spend the credit on that. I won't buy it.
Yeah. Right.
What else? So as you can see from behind me, this is the Voices in the Shadow. And this is our Global Tech Advocates Black Women in Tech book.
Oh, nice.
And this is our third volume. And we've done these for the last 3 years. And in there are 51 stories of Black women that work in tech. The first volume was women in the UK. The second volume, I think we open it up. It might be women in, few women from Ireland and maybe a few from Europe. And this year was more a few women that are global, I think. But it is 51 stories of women that work in tech, and what they would advice they would give. I'm lucky. I'm in the first edition. I'm on the board, and that for me. And we just had our festival 3 weeks ago now. 2-3 weeks ago. So I'm reading through because I didn't read everybody's story, but I'm reading through the stories, and it's just really, really nice to see some of these women that a lot of people have never heard of, and seeing what they've done and where they are in their tech journeys.
Sure. And tell me, what is the festival that you had that was part?
So we have our Voices in the Shadow, Global Tech Advocates, Black Women in Tech festival. And it's basically, we had two tracks this year. One was entrepreneurship and one was about professional development. So for women in professional organizations, basically. So one was entrepreneurs and one was for women that were working in corporate. And it's just about building your portfolio, building your career paths and trend and progression. And that was really great. That was really great. And next year, I'm the co-lead for the Women in Tech group. So we have
Okay.
Black Women in Tech group, and then we have a Women in Tech group.
Okay.
And next year, that's the 10-year anniversary. And
Okay.
so we're working on something where we bring in for all the different types of women. And probably, I think next year we're going to focus very much on the financial aspects, because that's a question and an area that everybody has an issue with. Salary negotiation, how you're getting funded. Because I've been a very firm proponent of people not getting VC funding unless it's absolutely necessary, and then getting specific funding, like if you are female, go into a fund where they are
Hmm.
actually going to, probably in high probabilities of what they've done in the past, give you funding, versus just going to a nameless Silicon Valley place where it's highly unlikely. So I'm I'm reading a lot of different stuff. One other fascinating book that I just absolutely just got started was Decentering Whiteness in the Workplace.
Okay.
And that's by, I'm going to mess up her name, Janice Gazem Azar. Azar. And I just started that just last night. And then another book is Cobalt Red, which is why I'm very much, the minute I heard about it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is my thing. This is my thing," you know. And Cobalt Red by Siddharth Kara, and then another book which I reread this book consistently since I got it a few months ago, and it's The Micro Stress Effect, and that's by Rob Cross and Karen Dillon. And I connected with Karen Dillon. The book's published by HBR, and I sat on a few roundtables for them, and very much friends with a lot of their team for the publishing arm. And I connected with her because they wrote an article, it was in HBR, and I was like, oh my gosh, holy grail, because there are all those little things that add up for so many of us. And I reached out to her and I said, it's a great article. I said, but as a Black woman, let me tell you. and she's a white woman. She was like, I know. She's like, I'm so sorry. We could not fit everything. She goes, because she goes, because for every intersection, there are more. She's like, every time you drill down, there are more and more. And she's like, some of it is addressed in the book. She goes, but we know. She said, just like for funding for women, it could be 78%, goes to men. Well, it's a worse number than that, but 7% goes to women, and Black women get 0.01% of that.
Right.
And she's like, so that's how it is with micro stresses. She said, you have an added component for every intersection that you are. She's like, and it was just, so I gifted the copy of the book to every single woman on our Women in Tech board, and also for our one male that's on the board. And I said, everybody has to read this. I said, because if we're going to be representing all women and we are a mixed group, we need to be aware of not just the stresses of women, but also you need to consider this. We have the discussion all the time. My co-lead for the Women in Tech group is a white female, but she's also from South London. And it's a heavily influenced community of Black people. So
Right.
she is been in tune with this her whole life. So she has a different perspective than some of the other people that are on our board, that even though England is pretty multicultural, they've grown up in places where it is heavily just white. So they've not really encountered that. So it's like, but that's a good book. I don't read a lot of fiction, which is most distressing because I like to read fiction, physically read fiction. Whereas with other books, I can listen to them. But listening to fiction doesn't work for me because that puts a voice to a character that I want to imagine what the voice sounds like. Versus listening to another book, I don't mind if the author reads it as long as their voice is not annoying. There's one or two people that I started listening to their books, and I'm going, your voice is annoying. I think I'll have to read
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I hear what you're saying about listening to fiction, because when I do listen to fiction and I am imagining, even the way the character is defined, I'm imagining different voices usually. So I hear you on that. It's true.
Yeah, it's most distressing. I don't watch a lot. I don't have a television.
Yeah, me either. I don't, well, not here. I rarely
So,
watch TV. Yeah.
so when I do watch something, it's either like Prime or Netflix. I love football. And for those Americans, soccer, football. And I'm a big Liverpool fan.
Okay.
And so it was very distressing for me to open Netflix and have them recommend the David Beckham. But I have a firm appreciation for David Beckham because there are sometimes you see people and you think, oh, it's just hype. He has skill, he has talent. And especially the fact that I'm like, you played for Real Madrid with like the big guys, you played with, Zidane. It's like, okay, I got to give you props. But so I watched that, and
Okay.
I binge watched it mainly because, well, I was getting my hair braided. So so which didn't take that long, but I was like, well, I said, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to watch this.
Yeah.
And normally, we watch like some really trashy thing that she likes to watch. But I was like, do you mind? She was like, no, it's really good.
Oh, okay.
And I was very surprised because, there is a degree of control that people have with their image.
Yes.
So that there were some aspects of this that had to be controlled. But you could also tell with the interaction between him and Victoria Beckham, that's them. You can see that they're not as put away as other people would like you to think. Like they have this image of, like, oh, they've made it. But you listen to them talk and you're like, no, they're still, they're still down here. And that's the difference, I think, between American and British celebrities. There's a more down to earth quality that you get with British celebrities than you get with American celebrities. I think American celebrities are put very much on a pedestal. You'll see some of the most famous people in the world by world standards, but by British standards, you'll see them on the tube. You'll see them on the underground. You'll see them walking, and it's not a big deal. It's kind of like living in New York City. You see celebrities all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, yeah, like I see them.
Like Bobby De Niro, you see him all the time, and it's like not a big deal. It gets kind of like, oh yeah, again, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Well, those are great. Those are great tips. They'll be in the show notes, folks. You have a lot in the show notes this week.
Oh, I've got another one.
Yes, please add.
The Power on Prime.
Oh, yes. That's a good one. Yes.
That
Yes.
is brilliant. And the thing
Yes.
was, it was maybe like it was just, I want to say it was in the middle of the pandemic. Someone told me I should read the book, and I didn't read the book. And I was like, am I going to read the book? And then I did it. And then voila, it came on Amazon Prime. And I was like, holy cow. Yeah. Now, if women could just rule the world like that, it would all be good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm interested to know if they're going to come back with another season, because
Oh, it was absolutely phenomenal. And every year when the Iceland women go on strike and shut down the whole country, I think What would happen if it just got seeded throughout the world, if every woman in the whole entire world did that? It would just be a bunch of bombs and people shooting at each other, and then them having to stop because there would be no women supporting them, because it usually comes down to, in some places, the women building the weapons, making the bullets, having to feed them, having to service their wounds. And I'm like, imagine if we could have that.
Yes, I do all the time. I imagine that for all disenfranchised peoples, because I've been just having a lot of interesting conversations about labor. And if people just stopped, I mean, it's difficult. Like feel like I have a privilege to be able to think like that, because
Yeah.
most people are living in survival mode. But if we could just break the mindset of go, go, go and think about, okay, how do I make a stand for me? And it really comes down to organizing.
Yeah, it's organizing and, of course, always the financial aspect. But I don't think the financial aspect, because I think if it just stopped, you couldn't make any money. So you would have to listen.
Exactly. That's it.
You look at like the actors strike, they just stopped.
Exactly.
Those companies could not make any money. They were just like, oh. And even when you think about the pandemic, everything sort of stopped. And it really did even out a lot of things. And I just knew it was going to be so skewed afterwards, because those people that made money wanted to make up their money. And that's what was so horrible, because you could just see.
Yeah. And that's where we are now, actually. That's where we are.
And that's, yeah, is that people have just gone, well, I need to make back my losses. No, it's like you can't make up time.
That is it.
There's only one thing in the world you can never do. When people say, I'm going to catch up on sleep, you can't catch up on sleep. There's no such thing, because you can't replace the time. It's just you need to make yourself less tired by getting sleep.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, I'm sorry. I just get all. Ooh, I am a
Yeah.
little.
No, I get
So
it. Like,
many things. So many things.
exactly. I was like, we could be talking and talking because just the tangents. So I look forward to other conversations with you. I really have enjoyed this time. I very much have. And so I'm mindful of your time. And so as we draw our conversation to a close, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
Sleep. As I said, you can't ever, even though Maxine said, reclaiming my time, you can't really reclaim it. You can take it from somebody, but you can never get time back. And if there's one thing I always think about, is how much time people waste pursuing without actually thinking what they're pursuing. And I always think, how do you want to spend your time? How do you want to look back on your life and know? Because I know there are things that I think, oh my gosh, I wasted time on that. I don't think I wasted time getting to where I am professionally, even though it was not, the straight line that everybody thinks that it was. It wasn't. Think everything that happens in your life happens and you learn from it. Always extract something to learn from what has happened in your past. You can't just go away thinking that that was bad and that's the end of it. Because from one thing that's bad, there's always something that's good. And no matter how bad your life is, there is always somebody that has a worse position than you. So even on your lowest, darkest day, I think and I go, I'm in a privilege. I've got a roof over my head. You know, I'm living a life that other people don't have never even contemplated. They can't even imagine it. They don't even have the technology, the skills, the infrastructure to think beyond that. They don't have running water. They don't have a toilet. There are people that are way worse, lower than I can even think or imagine. I've got it good. I'm not living in some gilded castle, but guess what? I want to be in a gilded castle because, gold flakes. Um, it's like, if I'm gonna live someplace, I'll make sure it's stable. But and right now we know, unfortunately, we're sucking this planet, and it's not that stable. But just live good, be good. Pay it forward. don't ever draw up that ladder once you've gotten someplace. Make sure you're helping the next generation, because the only way that we flourish is if we help the next generation. Don't cut them down. Everybody's always talking about how they're useless. They're not. They just have a different way of thinking about things, just like we had a different way of thinking about things to
Exactly.
our families and the generations before us. And no matter what you think about this being the worst time in the world ever in your life, no, it isn't. Everybody always thinks that about every generation.
Mm-hmm.
Said this 300 years ago. They
There you
probably said it,
go.
1,000 years ago. And
Yeah. Yeah.
20 years from 20 years from now, someone else is going to be saying that. So it's about you and your perspective. Make your mind open.
Yeah. Good. I like it. I like it. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for joining us. We really had a wonderful time. And again, we can find her at sukifiller.com. And no, we can't.
Yes, you can. You can find me there. My website is woefully late. Lately
Okay.
not been updated. It has to be updated. I'm really
Okay.
bad about that.
Sure. Yeah.
I tell people to update their stuff and then I don't do mine.
But we can find you on your socials, which will be on the show notes. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It was wonderful to talk to you.
Yes. Have a beautiful rest of your Monday.
The sun has come out.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. I sent it specifically for you.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
The melanin is going to start to glow now.
Exactly. Exactly. I can already see it. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Please like, share, review, and tell a friend, because that's how great people find great content on the lines. I know that sounded weird, folks. But in any case, until next time, bye for now.